In the Caribbean to you wherever you are. Welcome to this another episode of Beyond the Headlines. I'm Joseph Cadore and I want to say thank you for taking off your busy schedule to be part of this evening's conversation. Mental health, understanding what it is, understanding the challenges that each and every one of us that we are faced with, and not just being faced with those mental challenges, but the question of how do we address them and adapt to our existing social space. My guest this evening, no stranger to the GBN. She is a director of the Friends of the Mentally Ill, a good friend of mine, my dear lady Anne Greaves. Also joining us, she's an author and she's a person living with a mental condition, a mental ailment, mental disorder, and I'm using all those different terms so at least we can draw out the conversation. And we're probably thinking, Sorana Mitchell, I didn't know that. Thank you, Sorana. Welcome to the program. And anchoring this evening's conversation is the man himself, Dr. Spencer Evlyn. Why I even refer to him as Spencer Thomas. Dr. Evlyn Thomas. And we want to say, Evlyn Spencer, sorry. I want to say, Doc, thank you. Welcome to this evening's Beyond the Headlines. And I'm noticing you came with your nice fancy threads from the wardrobe.
To keep warm, man.
I certainly did because my past occasions has been very cold, basically cold, and I
just enlighten the moment.
Yeah,
I normally say to people when you come to Beyond the Headlines, welcome to the icebox.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
I'm happy that we started this evening's conversation by sharing a bit of a laughter, because we've grown up and we've always heard the expression that laughter is the best remedy to everything else. And very often as we go through the course of life, we hardly ever stop to think about, when last did I laugh? When last did I smile? We bucked down with the bills, the challenges of getting the kids right growing up, and mentally we are bombarded. And we are confused.
So laughter is good for your mental health.
Different, and those things are not good for our mental health. But for the purpose of this evening's conversation, though, Doc, when we hear about mental health / emotional health, what exactly are we referring to?
Thank you again for inviting us, and thank you all the listeners and viewers. Mental health deals with the biopsychosocial being, so we talk about health, emotional, behavioral, perceptual, what we think, what we do not think, and basically those things.
Expand on it for us. What we think, what we do not think, those psychosocial elements of us. What exactly? That still sounds a bit complex. And getting me a bit dizzy. It's not good for my mental space.
Well, I will tell you, sometimes when I ask the patients how you do it, I'm so-so, I'm not too bad. And I think if you start off with the negative thoughts, then probably the whole day is going to be negative. Yeah, it won't be good. So it's better to have pleasant thoughts, and irrespective of whether you're carrying the world on your shoulders, but you should still think that it could be, somebody else, like people will say, somebody else probably is worse off than me. That's something we say in order to help us understand that somebody else may really be worse off. But our thoughts have to be positive and have to be forthright and recognizing that this is going to shape how we behave. Like I see, if you have your thoughts and behavior and the mood. So the thoughts would, if you were thinking about going, West Indies playing a game in Queen's Park, and Richards and Ghana and Holden and these guys there, you probably have very pleasant thoughts if you're a cricket fan, and your dress will mirror that, and your behavior will also mirror that.
But I just want to add to that, if you in fact you're a cricket fan, the thought of West Indies playing anybody very often, it puts you in a place, Sorana, that you don't necessarily want to be.
But that's now.
The names called from a time past when the West Indies was the bomb.
So, I mean, if you go to that generation, it makes you feel good.
Well,
I'm on a winning side. But I mean, I don't want to bash the current West Indies fans too hardly. But that generation, that would put a smile on your face. The current team, we're going to leave that alone. But I'm getting a sense, Ms. Greaves.
It's really good that we're here tonight. We're actually talking about mental health. Because for a very long time we've actually buried it under the sand, the carpet, wherever. And I think it's now come home. I mean, the last couple of years with COVID, it's been should make us realize that the number of things that are happening in our social and environmental space does impact on us, has negative impact on us. So it's good that we're here and we're talking about it, because we talk a lot about physical illness and we don't talk a lot about our mental health. It's time that every Grenadian needs to know how to look after their mental health, and also to help care for the other person's mental health as well, those in the community, the family and stuff like that. And I think for so long it's all been negative, and the myths about it that has created the stigma and discrimination, where people have been very afraid to come out and say, look, I'm unwell, waiting very long to say before they seek medical intervention. So that's during that stage it becomes so late, and it's just health, mental health, like physical health, it needs to come on par, mental health needs to come on par with physical health. Just like we'll say, well, we've got diabetes, I've got an issue with the flu and stuff. I think we need to say, look, I'm not feeling good today. These sorts of feelings are overpowering me. I'm not able to sleep. I'm not eating well. I'm not able to converse. Those sorts of things. And I believe if we're able to talk more about it openly, it's a conversation we must have. It has to start in the home. Doc would say in the belly. So in the home, in the school, in our job place, and in us, in our society, where we have the rum shop and on the block where people can talk about a number of political and other stuff. I think we should be able to share and be open about what's happening to us, and it doesn't happen often enough, and so it becomes like a taboo, something out there where it's you have professionals who think they're not going to get sick, and the way they see other people who are ill and not thinking, well, mental health, it's everybody's business. We all have issues, mental health. Not only issues, but mental health is something that we all have.
And I think maybe one needs to change that conversation, temper how people see it, instead of saying maybe mental issues. I've meant challenges. And even those words, choice of words, Sorana, it helps to deal with changing the landscape of what Ms. Greaves says, the stigmas, the myths, and everything that governs what in fact is something that we are faced with.
The language.
It has to change. But for you though, the conversation is one that's a bit more intimate.
Yes, well, as a matter of fact, it's interesting enough. On Saturday I was in Grand Anse, to be exact. I was at one of the stores at the mall, and this woman said to me, she asked me, she said, you're going to be on Beyond the Headlines. I was like, how do you know? Because I wasn't on Facebook. So you guys posted it and people saw, and she said to me, could I speak to you for a moment? And I said, okay. And she said to me, I have a friend who's been behaving differently, and it has accelerated over the past 2 years. Now she does not listen to anyone. She just curses people out. She lost her job and her behavior has changed. So, and she's asking me, what do you do? I said, have you tried to have a conversation with her? You know, and I know that at that point, it's hard to have a conversation with someone at that, you know, that level. And so she said, we have tried, but she's, you know, in my understanding, she's deteriorating. So, and they don't know what to do with her. So as we're here on the show, it's interesting that you guys put it out and someone was able to walk up to me and have that conversation. So, you know, if that person is watching that show now, Dr. Spencer, in a situation like that, I'm not taking your job. What would you say to someone with a friend who is behaving like that?
No, feel free. We don't want to, there's no order to it. Because that was part of the conversation. I'd be able to identify and assist, because very often you would appreciate they throw out red flags.
Yeah.
They give signs. They hint to certain things. A child that is possibly suicidal, you would hear them make certain comments. The guy in the rum shop, in the mix of the next rounds, you hear him hint to certain things, and we think it is nothing dark. What should we be looking for?
Well, we already saw something and said the behavior has changed, and quite often that is what John public would see and family members will see, this behavioral change. And the behavioral change, though, is never accepted for what it is, really. And they may seek help, and the help that they will seek is not from person like ourselves. They will go to preach somewhere, and that's all right too, because that's the culture. If I should use that word loosely, that's how some people see that as the first port of call. But we have
hold for me, Doc. I want us to dissect this. You talk about a person that's not in the right mental space. They're having behavioral challenges, difficulty sleeping. Their life is not as it used to be. Their first option is that of a priest,
not the patient, you know. Not the patient, it's the family.
Right, yeah. Right,
Okay,
that's the first option. Why is that stuff so?
Because I don't want to accept the C word or the M word or the L word. You know, I don't want that. Because the stigma of the illness is not only addressed to the patient, is the house or the home, you understand? So that's how it is. So, but we have we have a clinic in St. George. They say that person does live in St. George. There's a clinic at Monge Hospital every first day of the week, and if they live in any other parish, the first Wednesday we have a clinic in St. David. Second Wednesday we go off to St. Andrew at Granborough Health Center, in St. David at Bellevue Health Center. The third Wednesday we go to a clinic in Sauters, and the fourth Wednesday we are in Grove. The first Friday we go to Carriacou and sometimes Petit Martinique if you could fill it in. So there are enough options.
Yeah,
So you're saying...
but they don't have to wait for those clinic days.
No, but quite
the
often,
health,
where you could go to see the doctor.
they go to see the doctor at the health center.
But even before we get into a doctor, because I don't want us to focus on mental health, because I would think going to a doctor, talking to someone is probably the extreme end. Is it possible? And I want us to zone in on that. And I want to go to you, Sorana, because remember, prior to us starting coming live, you said you yourself, the whole topic is personal to you. You've had the experience, you've walked the road, and you've dealt with those challenges. And and I'm saying we continue. But share your story for us, if you wish.
Okay, sure. I was diagnosed in 2007, 2008, around that time. And I was living outside of Grenada. My behavior changed, just as the woman who met me was telling me about her friend. And I deteriorated to a point where I had to be hospitalized.
Explain change for me.
So I was my thoughts were fast, so that means I was moving fast. So as Doc was saying in the beginning, your thought process, everything, it affects, mental health affects your thought process, your emotion, how you act and everything. So if you have racing thoughts, that's part of bipolar, that's part of the mental illness that I live with. So if you have racing thoughts, your thoughts moving really fast, some people do experience that. That does not mean that you have bipolar. But if it's a consistent, something that happens consistently. So it was happening consistently. I was not sleeping. My eating was a mess. And it affected how I could basically be a part of the general living space, basically. And so I was hospitalized, and then after a while, after being they talked to me and asked me questions and so on, and observing me and so on, I was given the diagnosis of bipolar. I did not want to accept it. Hey, I'm a Grenadian woman. The last thing I want to be told is to take medication every day. I rarely took medication. If I had a headache, I'll drink some water and sleep. So you telling me now I have a mental illness, which I grew up knowing, if that is wrong with you, either somebody do you or something is not right.
They pass juju on you?
Whatever. we have a term for it.
Right.
It's obia, is whatever. So you telling me now that I have this thing called mental illness, this bipolar thing, and here I am, my life, what happens to me now? I mean, so I didn't want to accept it. So I didn't want to take the medication, and I deteriorated again.
Okay, hold for me right there. Bipolarity, so at least for the purpose that the public can follow it, in a medical field, what exactly is what's happening, or what happens with the person in that condition?
Bipolar talks about the two poles and mental illness in certain categories. So this is a mood disorder, and both poles. So sometimes the patient is high, as she said, elated or manic, and sometimes they're low, and they have different symptoms on both ends. What she was describing was a manic event where you have a lot of energy, and you don't sleep well, you don't concentrate well, so you don't function well at work, and you might have delusions of grandeur where you believe that you're
God is talking
royalty and so on, And the other end of the pole is the depression thing, and you cycle in and out.
Okay.
Of that.
And you can often spend during that high time. You can often spend a lot of money, and not even it's not your own. If you have it, but you can spend other person's money as well. If they, so they go and claim. Yes, yeah. So that happens.
As well as there is also the side that some people don't talk about. I didn't experience it, but in my research and speaking with other people, hypersexuality. You have sex with so many different people.
Yes.
Okay, because everything is at a high. You're
so
on a
this
high.
is not a mental disorder. This is not a case of an individual just being, as they say, they're just worthless. They're just bad-minded.
No, not at all.
This is an issue, a mental condition that you have to be able to navigate your way through. The extreme ends of the ups
And the lows.
and the lows.
Yeah.
How was it for you growing up, though? That must have probably make life quite a mix.
I was not aware of it as a child. In my teen years, I do know I had bouts of depression, but I associated it with another activity that affected me. And in so doing, I did not see it related to bipolar. But as I deteriorated, later on in my early 20s, going back in my mind, I saw I was hyper there. Like, I was very creative. Another part of it is creativity. I am very creative, and I channel it in my creativity because I'm on medication, so I'm able to work with myself. I've been able to learn myself, so I know how to work with myself. Although, of course, Doc knows that there may be times when one might have relapses, because that's part of it. You might be on medication and you never know what happens. You relapse. But as we're talking about, well, my experience, so yeah, as they were saying, you could spend money, it could be, you think God is talking to you. I thought God was talking to me, honey.
Talking to you in the context of you wanting to be closer to Him. I just want to be a good Christian.
I thought I was so good and I was righteous, and there's this thing I realize with people with a mental illness, they become very focused on the Bible and focused on God, and I got hyper focused on God and the Bible. Yeah. So there is this thing that, as Doc explained, you go from one extreme, so it's hyper everything. So if you eat a lot. You have an affinity for sex. You have sex with everybody and anybody anywhere. You can get diseases and and afterwards when you come down, you don't know what happened to you. Okay? You might go stealing. One of those movie actresses she went stealing back in the 90s, went on a rider, and they diagnosed her as bipolar. I remember her story because I was listening to the story and I was like, why would she go steal? She's a rich woman, But then they showed that she has this illness, and it makes you like if you have a kleptomaniac, you just taking you hyper. So I deteriorated because I didn't want to take the medication. This is something that Doc faces daily.
Let's hold a conversation there. You deteriorated because you didn't want to take the medication. Mm-hmm. We're going to pull a hole on that. Ms. Graves, you were part of the Friends of the Mentally Ill, and stories like Sorana's and others, you've become part of who you are. What sort of world? Try to paint a world for me. I'm hearing Sorana's story, and believe me, I'm spellbound. And I know we started the conversation.
There's so many people out there living with those sorts of illnesses. Bipolar is quite common. Before it became known as bipolar, it was manic depressive. It was known as manic depressive illness. So there's a lot of people. When I first came back here to Grenada, it was there was a well-known, I think he was an actor and a business person who committed suicide, and it was all talked about, and nobody really. No, it must have been very difficult for him and his family, because it was, how could he do that? And how could he do that? And did anybody pick up the signs that was there when he was probably at such a low mood, the depressive episodes that he was experiencing, and but he committed suicide, and that was it. And I've had family members who've committed suicide, and I sort of at once I blame myself, because I thought, did I saw the signs? He wasn't saying, and then I got blamed for not picking up the signs, and I blame, not only other people blame, his mom blamed me, but I felt I blame myself as well. So there is something you see. This is my charity. Friends of the Mentally Ill is my charity. The more, because you're dealing with very, very vulnerable people who are actually misunderstood, right? Misunderstood, because people always view them as violent. You're mad, you're violent, you're different from me, you're so different from me, and yet we're not much different from them. But we just see ourselves as, we have to see ourselves as, it's them out there and us. And there are a lot of people who are suffering. And let us go to the home where things starts. Because we have to make some changes in the home, how we relate to our children, how we relate to our partners, the environment of that, and how it impacts on our children. Early childhood traumas, and Doc would agree with me, has a serious impact, mental health impact. Children doesn't get over sexual abuse or witnessing domestic violence and this continuous and physical abuse, and those sorts of things are being shouted down and being told you're stupid and you're just like your no good father. These are the things that have a negative impact and actually can destroy children's life. Then you're going to the school and you're the most vulnerable. You're coming from a very vulnerable homes, and you're going to a school where you're thinking things is going to be all right, but it's not going to be all right because you're in an environment where people don't necessarily understand you either.
And when you say, and I wanted to help us to put this in perspective, because I know there are folks at your home, you're hearing the conversation, and you started to thinking, okay, now I'm making sense. Little boy, and you're trying to figure out why is he so disruptive. A little girl, why is she behaving that way? And you go back to the point you're making with, and a lot of psychologists would say to you, if you meet an adult in whatever mental disposition they find themselves, if you take them back to their childhood, 9 out of 10, Doc, you were able to unearth those challenges, those underlying challenges that very often, Doc, has been left unattended. How important is it as you develop, you mature, Doc, that you learn to deal with the issues in your lives? I'm not necessarily referring to the extreme ones of a person witnessing some gruesome act or being sexually disenfranchised. But as human beings, we go through different spaces, and as we grow, we tell ourselves, I need to drop some things off. Is that as easy as it seems?
It never is, because we have to be in areas where loving and caring, and over the years I have come to recognize that we need societies, we need to make a lot of change in our space, and I think we should introduce these conversations in schools 3 and 4 years old. Let everybody, so the children would recognize that mental illness is not something that is somebody else gets. Any one of us could get it, and it's not somebody who is CL or M. And by CL or M, you understand what I mean? Crazy, lunatic, or mad. And so we need to have an environment. For example, so let's start. So lady A is pregnant for man B. Is this a pregnancy we want, or is this unplanned for, or something that just happenstance? And so how is this pregnancy developing? Is the environment of the womb, is it loving and healthy, and is a partner there who is also loving and healthy and singing to this baby, and because the baby would
feed off the emotions.
Feel the emotions there also, So we're starting off like that, and we're continuing on with a home that is loving and caring, and you eat right, and all the other things that have to do with it. So it doesn't start, we can't change, or it's very difficult to say make these changes after, but as you get older.
But Ms. Greaves, a home environment that is loving and caring is by no stretch of the imagination are you referring to a situation where mother, father is spoiling a child with all of these physical things.
No.
That's not what you're referring to.
Not at all. Real love, basic love and care. Mm-hmm.
What we all need.
Yeah.
And that connection, which actually helps our brains. And there's a lot of things. I see it too, where our children are sit down, sit down, sit down.
Yes,
And I'm thinking, but that child, he or she needs to move about. Their brain needs they need the oxygen going in there. They need all of those things, all of the things that that is necessary to help nurture time spending with your child. And I'll give you an example of, I thought my neighbors, every Friday night, there was always noise and laugh coming from our neighbors. And I thought, what's going on, until I was bold enough to ask them. And they had, Friday night was games night. Games, simple things we can do with our children, positive interaction where we can sit. And even if we choose, at the end, Friday, we don't have to, we're busy, people are busy, and work takes priority. But one day a week, you can say, look, before games night, how was the week for you? And let us talk about issues. And then you have a games night and there should be a lot of laughing coming from this house. But we've lost all of that. We've actually, and everyone, even if we go to the beach, my parents they don't take the phone so they can take a photo of the beautiful little children in the water or playing in the sand. They actually take it so that they can carry on their own silliness on their phone, and the child is in the water alone. I don't know, sometimes we don't have more fatalities. The child is on the water alone and they're sitting back and they're playing with their phone, and I'm thinking, but this is meant to be family time. Family time where you leave, your phone, you want a picture, yes, that's fine, but you put it down and you're there and you're interacting positively. And look, there's a lot of things we need to change, right?
I know you're going through the emotional overdrives.
Yes.
And seeing Sorana,
Sorana wants to just...
We're connecting with you somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, what is coming to me is that what we're discussing here is the ideal. But many of us do not come from the ideal. And what I would like to say is that many of us have to come to the realization that if we do not get the ideal childhood, the ideal parenting, then to live our lives to the fullest, I think that we have to realize that there are people who are called psychologists, therapists, who can help us release a lot of those burdens that we've carried. We didn't have games night. We didn't, like some parents didn't want their children since in the womb. So as Doc was explaining, you feeling that emotion that you were not wanted.
And you've gone through a period of total rejection. From the womb, birth, you live a life where you feel as though you're not wanted. The conversation is about to take flight, but we have to take a quick commercial break. As you deal with the issue of mental health, we put it under the microscope right here on Beyond the Headlines. We'll be right back, Grenada.
You ate well, drank and indulged, laughed and had so much fun for the festive season. But now it's time. It's time for some serious detox business at Nirvana Detox Center and Natural Health Store. Start the year right with your health as a priority. Cleanse and flush your blood, liver, and kidneys with quality herbs and supplements. Purchase one of our detox combo packs starting from $100. Purchase a full body detox pack starting from $500. Get 10% off on colonic irrigation. Get a chance to win a free colonic irrigation treatment and product coupons with every purchase. We are located in Grandans, minutes before the Food Fair Shopping Center, immediately opposite the old Capital Bank building in the Regency Commercial Suites. Give us a call at 231-6642 or 418-7115 or visit nirvana.gd for more info. It's time for some serious detox business at Nirvana Detox Center and Natural Health Store. We know real body care. This offer is valid until March 31st, 2023. Terms and conditions apply.
But when you need someone to help you to your feet, I'll be that beacon to your highest peak. Oh,
Lexa Credit Union, with you wherever your road leads.
Have you heard about the new Softweave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Softweave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue, available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Softweave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
Do you have muscular pain that no one can find a solution for? Are you tired of taking meds for joints and other pains? Hills and Valley Medicare Center on Grenville Street, St. George is here to help you heal. We will help you map a path to your full recovery. Visit us Monday to Saturday for a consultation with our on-site doctor, physiotherapist, and massage team. You will be glad you did. Our Medicare Center, a proud member of the Hills and Valley group of companies. On the hilltop or in the valley, we are with you wherever life takes you. Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Your health is our business.
Do you know that you can lower your electricity bill by switching to energy-efficient appliances? By switching to energy-efficient appliances, you can help lower your energy usage. Your refrigerator, for example, is amongst the highest energy-consuming appliances with.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grandlands. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 440-1500. Or visit any of our 3 locations. Spicile Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
Thank you. Welcome back to the program. Joseph Cadore here and in for Colin Dow this evening. In case you're just joining us, we want to say thanks for being part of the conversation. This evening, we're taking a look, putting under the microscope, the whole issue of mental health. Mental health, why does it happen? And my guest this evening, just to share with you, Anne Greaves, Director of Friends for the Mentally Ill, Dr. Evlyn, and of course we have with us, and it's important, we have Sorana Mitchell, who is literally an individual that has been diagnosed with bipolarity, and we've been discussing the odds and ends, the highs and lows, the variations, the extreme ends of living with a mental condition. And Ms. Greaves, it's important for us to underscore that when we make mention of mental health, we're not necessarily referring to a person that we in society refer to as being crazy or as being a lunatic. Yes?
Or mad.
That may be one of the extreme ends. The truth is, and we could well appreciate that each and every one of us, in one way, form or fashion, we are mentally challenged on a daily basis.
Well, I could say daily, on a daily basis. We've got so many things. Stress, for example. I mean, there are we all experience stress and
COVID.
you know, well, COVID was a stress, but even if you take away COVID on a daily basis, our lives have stresses, and you know, we shouldn't have too much stresses. But I mean, COVID brought with it. If you think about COVID, we were isolated. Many of us, the church is a very important place for us. We couldn't go to church for many months. I certainly didn't go because I was vulnerable, so I actually stayed away, and I believe that impacted me quite negatively. So there are those things, the loss of loved ones, which the loss of a child, the loss of a mother, the loss of a husband, a wife, all of those things that we have to deal with sometimes on a very daily basis. Bereavement, loss of employment. So many people lost their jobs during COVID as well. And with a crisis, this world crisis now, we're faced with the rising cost of living, and it's impacting on us. How are we going to manage our daily expenses? And we've got so many expenses now compared to the people long ago. They had to buy, some kerosene for the lamp and this and this. Now we have school fees, we have insurance for this, medical insurance, car insurance, and we have sometimes 3 vehicles, so it's 3 different types of insurance. And there's so much stresses on us now, and which I think we have to try and manage. And we have to find a balance of being able to cope so we can look after our mental health, right? So the signs are there. You're thinking, well, I don't care if Mr. Cadore has a 60-inch TV, I really don't need one, but many of us would, it's not jealousy, I wouldn't see it as, but they think they're inspiring, but not necessarily aspiring with a 60-inch TV. And so they'll stretch themselves to acquire things which are not absolutely necessary. The things that are necessary, a roof over your head, so you need to think about your mortgage. That's your first priority, making sure you pay your bills so you don't get cut off. Your children, your children are fed, your children have got bus fare and school fees, school, meals, money to get them on the bus if you can't drop them, and for the dinner and stuff like that. These are the most important things, but sadly, many of us make the right decision.
I'm getting the sense, Sorana, as I'm listening to Anne, that prioritization has to become an integral part of that management process.
Yes.
But as we say that, we live in an era where education is a big thing. And as you further your education, Doc, we keep, at some point in time, we get, as we talk about our basic needs, food, shelter, and clothing. And we are taught that at school. But in the very same education system, we probably then find ourselves having to deal with Maslow's hierarchy of needs that pushes us as individuals from our basic core wants to the ultimate. And society has a way of continuing to push you. So the pressure is not the problem, though, is it?
For me, if you're asking me personally, to be blunt.
Be blunt.
I don't fall behind or fall for society's pushes. I prioritize what's for me. And so I've always been like that. If you have a 60-inch TV, that's yours. I'm happy for you.
Let me ask you though, is that a function of the bipolarity, those extremities, or does it have to do more with your values?
My values. Because even with bipolar, if you have values, they help to keep you grounded. You have to know what's best for you. And as we were pointing out just now, is the fact that society pushes you. Everyone has a car, so you must have a car. Sorry, Sorana's walking because she can't afford a car. And that's fine, because Sorana made that conscious decision that her finances cannot reach there right now. And because of that, Sorana is okay to walk or take a bus. And I live within those means. I prioritize my education. I put my daughter's education first.
Right.
I put her well-being first, and my well-being, food, clothing, and shelter. We have food, we have clothing, we have a house over our head, we laugh, we behave wild, we have fun, we sing, we do all sorts of things. Those things are important for me with my daughter, so I prioritize that. However, there are people who want to keep up with the Joneses. Fine, if you want to keep up with the Joneses and kill yourself, by all means, go ahead and kill yourself.
You don't know, as our grandparents used to say, you're not aware that the Joneses, they are pulling the devil by his tail, and they can't sleep at night. I normally laugh, and I say, you see people, I'll give it as a joke, when they pull up into the gas station, and while some might be able to say $60 gas, please, they have to whisper, or they may make a sign, and of course the attendant understands that that's what he wants.
Yeah, we're laughing, but the fact of the matter is, when you are pushed or pulled by society, it adds stress to your life, and if you cannot handle that stress, then you can end up in a mental institution, because sometimes it takes something. Some people might think it's simple, but that is that last straw that pushes you over. I know of people who would have been in a relationship, and because they lost that loving relationship, that woman or that man, they have a breakdown, and sometimes they never get back up because they loved so much. And someone from looking from outside might say, warm to he, warm to she, so you know, no more man or day, more fish.
Or they see you as being weak.
Yes, mental illness is considered weakness in our society, because that was what was thrown at me. You're weak because because of the mental illness, and I have to say, I don't need anybody to say it for me. I know that it's because of strength that has gotten me where I am. Because the stigma associated with it, you don't have anybody. I didn't have anybody. I had to do everything by myself, and I had a young child. So I had to take care of myself and her. Imagine that.
I mean, and those are the sort of pressures that if you don't have a support team, Doc.
Yes, that's important.
You both share on. It's important. Years ago, I remember years ago, and I want to say good evening to Ms. Hercules. I remember years ago in GBS, I remember she said to me that there's a very thin line between sanity and insanity. And very often, if you push yourself hard in the wrong direction, you may find yourself crossing that threshold. And it is said that once you cross over, getting over is one thing, coming back is a different conversation. But a question that's been asked, Doc, is whether or not maybe as a parent, a loved ones, if there's any games or sort of things that you can do that you can just try to get an appreciation for where your children are, your family members. If there's a family member you're thinking they may not be where they're supposed to be, but before taking the step of going to a doctor, because of course the stigma we talk about, are there any games, things that you can suggest that one can do in order to measure where that person is mentally?
I don't know of any. I really don't know of anything. But what I would hasten to say here is that families, when we are done, families should pull together, but you don't see that often with mental illness. So when I say it's because you are strong, and it has to be strength to keep you well. Hard work, like I say to the patients all the time, nothing comes easily. Everything is hard work. So number one is accepting that something is not right. I wouldn't say wrong, something is not right, yes? So the family members have to see that. And we have to take charge, because if you don't, I mean, as the parent, if you do not do so, then the same persons who making the comment, who stigmatizing the situation, and they are the same ones who will lambaste you later on. Yeah. So we have to do what one needs to do, what one has to do, and that is the basis of this all.
Those stigmas that we talk about, those griefs, I can well imagine it leaves one feeling lonely, desolate,
it surely does.
Abandoned.
It surely does.
It's all about me. Nobody cares.
Well,
you know, I may as well just call it a day, and then it leads into depression and all of these different sort of.
Look, we all need positive. We need connections, don't we? We need positive connections. We need to know there are people there for us, isn't there? When we're down, there are people we can call and say, "Look, I am down. I'm not feeling right." But if we don't have that, we become isolated.
But we have to go beyond that. I think the stigma is something that happens because we are not educated enough. We don't understand that this is an illness. Yes.
So I want us to make sure we put education in its right context. I know there are some boys out there with a PhD and everything else that you say they're not educated and they may take offense to it. If you are lacking knowledge in any particular field or arena, you're uneducated.
Yep.
So you might be qualified to be 1, 2, 3. But if I put you on a construction site with to do carpentry, that's not your field.
Yes.
So, but as you said, but most of us, and I'm saying us, because of lack of knowledge.
Well, we are the ones responsible for the stigma. We in the society, all of us make a society, so all of us is responsible.
And in most cases, it's been handed down.
Well, it's been handed down, and we're not opting out. I tell you, I've been in Monge Hospital almost 30 years, and it's difficult to get a young medical doctor to come to work there.
Why?
So because of the stigma. Because of the stigma.
It's lesser than position, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, the thing is, if I want to say the herd mentality, all of us live here, and all of us, this is how we were raised. So in order for you to act differently, you have to opt out of that thinking. This is another human being who happens to have mental illness. But folks who you think should recognize that and should be willing to help, there are situations where staff would not want a patient. Well, Spencer, why you want this nice young woman go up to Bungie? Well, because she has a mental illness. But you get asked those questions, they are unwilling, and if they could help it, patients wouldn't go to Bungie.
Help me to understand though, what is the process that's involved in one, eventually, one being admitted to, because I've heard some sad stories, I've heard some really, really harrowing stories that makes you go, okay then.
But there are sad stories, and I suppose there are sad stories, okay. But the admission to the hospital means that if you went home any one of us went home this evening, and you happen to have chest pain and the pain is worrying, and they will hurry us to the hospital. Well, why somebody has to be the symptoms have to be so gross that you have to call the police to get them to the hospital? If it's your child or any one of our children, you recognize this behavioral change, and it's not, if you wait a few days, let's say, and you see that it's not getting any better, but then let's act. Let's act and take them to, like I said, the casualty.
But who makes that ultimate? Because there is a case that I'm quite intimate with, of a young man who was admitted, and not necessarily as to what may have transpired from then to now, I'm not quite sure. But the challenge was that he was hearing impaired. And the families really and truly were the ones able to communicate with him. So police came, he was behaving unreasonably. The first thing they did was call the police. The police comes.
So who called the police? The neighbors or the family?
Police came.
Okay, police came.
I can't remember all of the details. Because if a young man is behaving otherwise, maybe he's swearing and behaving otherwise. The first thing you start thinking, okay, call the police. The police comes, and I guess that's another vein to the conversation. How trained are they to deal with persons that are behaving mentally erratic? He was behaving erratic, so they took him. The next thing we know is that he is at the mental hospital because the understanding is that he was asked a few what are supposed to be basic questions that he was not able to render a response to, and they determined, but it's not that he couldn't understand it. The space, when he gets into that space, the parents, the family, they're able to. And it just led to a whole quagmire.
So, but you see, there is the situation. Quite often, you wouldn't let your child go to general hospital by him or herself. You would accompany them, but that doesn't happen in Monge. Quite often, the family members are not there. And I tell you, patients will be there for, periods of time, and family don't come. But let that patient have to go to the general hospital. They will go and look for them there. They get big funerals after they spend 30 years.
But help me know, from the general hospital, who certifies that this person needs to be a mental patient?
Well, the general doctor, in casualty, because there are certain conditions that you're looking for. You look at the vital signs and you ask certain questions. You maybe do a lab test, you do an ECG or something that is necessary.
So all the doctors that you'd find at the casualty, are they trained within that scope of work to determine that this patient needs to be sent up there? Or maybe you need to get a social worker?
But you see, the thing is that what would the social worker do then? Because somebody who is very agitated and unsettled, the social worker can't. Miss Graves is looking. But the social worker.
Tell me about the social worker.
But you can't. You see, you can't have conversation with somebody who is in that vein. So you probably want to have the person sedated and the social worker with you. Then the patient is very agitated.
So you want to sedate them? Okay.
Before they come, so it allows you to then have the conversation.
But is there any truth that, before we get back to you, Ms. Graves, as a social worker, you've always heard the argument that the medications that's been administered, when you get there,
yes,
once given to you, it takes you into a different mental space.
Well, there's no truth in it. There's no truth.
Tell us emphatically. I mean, I'm asking you because we talk about the ignorance in which we live, and all of that helps to drive all of these sort of negative. That you can't dare tell me that you send in my child, my loved one, and once they get the medication once,
you need to have it.
Family is telling you, well,
they need to have it all the while. That's what people say. You know, I don't want to talk. Ms. James will come in next. Yeah. But patients will, you meet somebody and they come, and one has to keep one school, but please don't give him the injection. But madam, what is the injection? There's not one size, So you might have a mood disorder, you might have a psychotic illness, you might have something, you might be substance use situation, you might be maybe have a medical. Sometimes patients come and what you find is that they don't really need to be there, and you won't keep them because what you're seeing is somebody with some medical condition that is behaving in that way. That's why they go to see the doctor first, whether it's in casualty or in a private office. They want to make sure that there's nothing physically wrong.
I want to go back because you were saying about
back to the social work.
No, I want to go back to, you were talking about the young man with the hearing disorder. Yes, right. So in that case, you need an interpreter.
Precisely.
Yeah. So doctor can't assess. Precisely. No doctor can assess what's happening to that patient unless you have an interpreter. Because I've seen it happen many times where it's wrong, where people are wrongly diagnosed because they haven't, in cases where persons got a hearing disorder and they have not brought in an interpreter.
We had two patients.
It's agitated.
We had two patients, and this lady, she couldn't. We would write and she would respond. Yes, so that's a
way of coming.
We don't have anyone like that at the hospital. We have to get somebody from.
Well, that's
so
what
this now
happens.
introduces a quagmire in our healthcare system.
Well, there's a lot of gaps in the system, and it's serious and systemic failures, right? But Doc was saying about the social worker. Doc was saying about the social worker. What can a social worker do, right? So patients are presenting, and as far as I'm concerned, it is not only a medical view that you take on board.
Of course,
you need to take on board the social environment and what is happening. So I think it takes an assessment from a team, right? A team of person who would assess, and you're assessing the risk, because no one who doesn't pose why does somebody who doesn't pose a risk to self and others would need to be up at Mongay if they can be helped in the community? And that's far than well, that's the way I see it, Doc, right?
But
it's true.
But Doc, it stands for good reason.
Yeah, why would you want to go?
Often, a lot of our mental space becomes agitated by our circumstance, what's happening around us.
Yes.
I can't pay my bills. Yeah. Some stress in my life. Yeah. Something is happening. My child is behaving unseemly. My boss is telling me this. I have reports and demands I can't make. I'm seeing I have 3 kids to feed, children to feed, and I don't know what next to do. And I feel as though I'm all alone. The boss, Sorana, doesn't understand, and Greaves doesn't understand. Doc doesn't understand. I feel as though I'm coming to my wit's end. That may have nothing to do with me being alone. It may just be that I'm overly
language,
and somebody just needs to pay my bills to me, and I'll be fine.
Those persons,
language we need to look at as well.
Yes,
because these are horrible.
When it goes,
this person won't come to Mongay.
Sorry, they won't come to Mongay.
No, those person might be at General Hospital and get seen there. Okay. But quite often,
the way the system is set up, though, that there are many who, because of the inefficiency of the system
failure,
red light is going off, they find themselves there.
Because, but again, see.
I mean, you could either agree or disagree. I don't want you to defend the system.
No,
the system. You're not the system.
I'm not defending the system. No,
you're not the system.
He's part of the system, so he can't. But he can't defend the system because
I'm not defending. I'm not trying to defend the system. Quite often, when patients come, it's because, like I said again, if the family were willing to, in most instances, to see it for what it is. This is not anybody who someone did something to and they acting in this way. Even if you thought so, you don't have to bring them to Mongay. But take them to the hospital and let somebody see. And assess and determine which way we go in here.
But you often get a sense, though, that even, and I guess it comes back not necessarily because people wantonly want to dismiss, but of course is that you cover lack of training for some of the healthcare professionals that's there, that once that person comes to them, they don't have the mental capacity to deal with that individual. So they most Sorana dismiss them as being a loony. Your head, I am trying to tell you, Sorana, I have a pain on my left side. And you telling me, no, Joe, well, based on what you're saying, I am telling you, I have a pain on my left side. I don't know what your medical, your books tell you, but I'm telling you, this is what I'm feeling, this is the emotions that I'm feeling. And it gets back to us being a little bit more tolerant, patience, being patient with each other, being willing to listen to somebody, Sorana.
Okay, so
I was going to say people go in for assessment, that is part of, where it gives the medicals and clinicians, psychiatric social workers, the opportunity to form an assessment of what actually is happening to the patients. Isn't that correct? So you spend the period where you're assessing them to see, well, what is actually going on. But sometimes patients will come in and they need to be medicated because they are very psychotic for their own protection and the protection of the staff and the protection of the other patients as well.
Sorana?
Well, no, you brought up the police, and in our society, many a times when a person becomes agitated or very, very violent in their behavior, they deteriorate to that point. The police is called, and this is a mental health issue. It's just the word mental is there, but it's a health issue. If we're talking about Grenada system, then a system needs to be put into place whereby you have health officials dealing with the mental illness of that patient. And if you want to bring in security, that security personnel is trained accordingly for health purposes. And I heard you using the word loony. I mean, we use it loosely because that's part of how we speak. But I recall speaking with a lawyer, and he raised the point that if we're going to take mental health seriously, we have to look at it from every angle and look at even the legislation, because in there you have words like lunatic running through. And you mean, and for example, Grenada follows the Mental Hospitals Act from 1895. Okay, and this is 128 years, right?
120, how much years?
28. Yeah.
1885.
1885.
Yes.
1885.
That's how archaic they are.
And the word lunatic runs through. And there is no...
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Do you know that you can lower your electricity bill by switching to energy-efficient appliances? By switching to energy-efficient appliances, you can help lower your energy usage. Your refrigerator, for example, is amongst the highest energy-consuming appliances with
WeatherGuard Pro. For every project, there's only one Pro.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grandlands. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 440-1500. Or visit any of our 3 locations. Spice Cell Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
Get ready to witness the ultimate sporting spectacle at the Horizon National Athletics Championship 2023. This 2-day event is taking place on March 11th and 12th at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium with a jam-packed schedule of middle and long distance races, sprint races, field and jump events. This is an event not to be missed. Come see Track Blazers, Ace, 473 MVP, Fusion, Rising Stars, Velocity, New Track Club and schools will be competing to showcase their talent and vie for national supremacy. This is the final opportunity for athletes to qualify for the Carifta Games. Admission $20. Children under 12 can enjoy the excitement for just $10. Also, don't miss out on the big showdown in the senior men's 400 meters between Commonwealth semi-finalists Michael Francois, Adian Peters, Troy Mason, and Sibile Felix. It's the Horizon National Athletics Championship, March 11th and 12th at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Get your tickets now.
Thank you. Welcome back to this special edition of Beyond the Headlines, where we're looking at mental health, putting the conversation under the microscope. Sorana, we're going to delve right back to where we ended, when we were talking about the challenge of the system, the kinks. We're operating under a system that is literally totally archaic, and we're talking about training that is needed to deal with persons that find themselves on the opposite end of the law, and they may have some mental issues.
So we were talking about the fact that when someone is behaving very hyper, the first person that's called is the police. Now, the person has a mental illness. It falls under mental health. It falls under health. And the police are not trained in Grenada, in our space, to handle that. And now they go to a situation and they have to now take down that person because that person is behaving erratic, and the first thing they would do is use a weapon. And most of the times they don't shoot to live, they shoot to kill. Sorry, no disrespect to the police because it's not their job. Okay, I would like to see a system whereby you have people trained to deal with this. Maybe taser guns to use, or so that, because sometimes the police themselves will tell you they're fed up. Every time they're calling about this man who only getting on, and they go and, they bring him up in Monge, he come back out, he gets on. So the police are fed up. So again, it's a system that needs to be looked at. And one of the things I heard you saying the word loony, and we use those terms very loosely, but our system has, for example, a mental hospital act that is very outdated. I was corrected, it's 1885, and we're in 2023. Okay, and so we have that act that covers mental hospital when you have to go into Monge and all of that, and the word lunatic runs through the act. Also, I'm not a lawyer, but I spoke with a lawyer, and so we have, for example, the criminal justice system has no place for people who have no control over their mental behavior at the time of a crime. So all of those things need to be looked at. I know we're concerned about mental health. I'm great, I'm happy, we're talking about it, but it needs to go deeper and look at the legislation. If you want to make change, you have to look at change everywhere.
It must be a holistic conversation.
Yes, it has to be holistic.
Not again, like I said, why should the police have to be called? Because you live home with me, so I should be the one in charge of you, to take you to where you could get help. Now, I understand the situation with the police.
Well, hold on, I'm trying to understand when you ask, why should the police get involved?
No, because things progress to that stage where you can't control now and you call for the police. Right. But I'm saying at its inception, when you saw it day 1, 2, 3, 4. Why not act early?
But we're assuming that this is a case where there are times things happen and we behave spontaneously. That spontaneous outburst that we give, Doc, we know we have triggers and things happen. So it may not be that I've been behaving that way for the last 5 days. Okay, but something you say to me, a trigger goes off, and I know we don't understand what triggers are in a mental context, and you remind me of some insultive, remember we talked about going back to our childhood. So you said something to me, Joe, why are you so dumb? And what I'm hearing is not what's happening now, but something that happened with my father, mother abusing me, and I decided I'm a big man, I ain't having none of that, and I react. And it doesn't matter what you say to me. In that space and time, the lawyers will say, I go temporarily insane, and they would find a way to get you off the books because you're temporarily insane. I'm not a loony, quote unquote, but for a split moment in time, I lost control of my faculty.
Yes, yeah, we understand that happens too, but quite often the situation where the police are called, we don't know if this patient had ever was seen and assessed as being mentally ill. The family called because they can't deal with the situation. If it were persons who had been to the hospital before and they have relapse for whatever reason, either they stop taking the medication, they stop coming to the clinic, they back to where they were, whether marijuana, smoking, or whatever happened. So they're back to where they were. But in the general scheme of things, quite often when the police is called to check on something, is persons whom they are aware, the family may be so. No, I understand about the police, and I would.
But do you agree with the observation that police, there's a deficiency in the system, and police, for instance, there should probably be a special team that is sent to deal with.
That's what we all recognize is needed. But a team of police with social workers and other persons who could maybe go there, and the aim is to diffuse the situation as much as it can be, and rather than to harm.
A good example.
Joe,
sorry,
I wanted to say, Joe, there are many occasions that may arise, but we'll need the assistance of the police will be needed. You know, there are times families have asked for help. They call in for help before things escalate to a point, but the system needs more staff, so they're not actually getting the response, the timely response as they should. So things escalate, and when the police are called, the police, Sorana says they're not trained, I think they will now accept that. Well, they're not qualified, and they feel as if the burden of the issue of mental health has been left for them to deal with, right? And so, it's frustrating, and so. But Sorana, I see a dangerous police if he has a taser and he's discriminative. He's just as dangerous if he's carrying a gun, because he could shoot off he could fire that taser how many times, and I could end up dead, or that person could end up dead. So it is about a continuous training, a collaborative approach which needs to happen, and it's good that the government has Sorana and we've got a government who says, health, wellness, and wellness.
That's one of the
wellness, and they have deemed this year as the year of mental health, and they're looking at the act, which I think is long overdue, although it's been looked at before. Persons were sensitized some years ago.
But that act does not need an overhauling.
No, we're talking. We're not talking about the 1885 Act. We're talking about a draft, a bill that was there, and the last one was 2000.
Well, which I understand, but I'm saying.
No, 2009. 2009.
Which you can well appreciate. You introduce a draft, but the entire system as it is, it has to need a total, not rechecking, resurface it, remodeling. Everything is wrong with
yes, I agree. I would say no, but see, the other thing too, you have to remember that the police is part of this society, and the police feel the same way about the patients.
annoyed.
The police feel the same way about the patient. These
They're
are
mad.
not human beings.
They're mad.
So everybody's fed up then?
Yeah, no, the police, it's the stigma.
It's not being
They
fed
have
up.
been
No,
addressed. Education.
When everybody's fed up, I see an individual that's behaving erratic, I call the police. The police come, they're not trained, they get emotionally drained. So I'm saying everybody's fed up in the context that the entire system, where there needs to be an overhaul, and that comes through retraining, rethinking exactly how do we treat with individuals that do not have the same mental space and capacity.
And we starting very, very early in life.
Joe,
3 or 4.
yeah, it's a frightening. It's a frightening situation when you are called to someone who's extremely psychotic. It is frightening.
It is.
Yes. So yes, it is.
From the beginning, I pointed out that there was a woman who approached me and she was telling me about her friend who is slowly deteriorating. So in a situation like that, I'm asking, what do we do in Grenada? Because she definitely is not accepting that something is wrong. But family and friends have seen her deteriorate. So what do we do?
Doc,
I see that
intervention is needed.
Yes.
Where do we start the process? The individual is not agreeing, is not accepting, and you could well appreciate what's going on with them. They're not accepting the fact that something is wrong with me. Family is saying yes. How do we deal with such a case?
So I think the onus is still on the family members to try to persuade her to get someplace where she could get help.
And that help comes from where?
But the help comes from the physician with whom she first interacts. You know, the physician that could go in private physician, or go in casualty, or go in the medical state, Ms. Graves.
But as a social worker, Ms. Graves,
listen, we haven't got systems in place to deal with any crisis situation where, you know, in a situation like that, you would think that, okay, she doesn't want to come, let's meet her on her home ground, all right, where she's familiar with. All right?
Well, yes, okay.
Yeah, let's meet on the home ground. We don't have everything is money. We don't have the staff.
Everything not, yeah. But we don't have the staff who would go in the house, right? So
but I mean that person's within the social system, Ms. Graves. So let's say within the healthcare system, you don't have. But is there anybody, persons in the Ministry of Social Development, persons that you can call that's saying this person is going through a crisis?
The psychosocial support.
They need support.
Team.
They don't need to be going to Mount Gay. They have a situation, and you might just be surprised that if somebody in the assessment, but I get to the sense though that the assessment always takes on a medical front.
No, you can't. And this was one of my main beef with the Draft Act of 2009. It weighed very heavily on the medical intervention and not looking at the social side, you know. And I think with the consultation that's been rolled out, it's due to start pretty soon, sometime next week, according to our dear Minister of Health and Wellness and religious affairs. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen with the sensitization of the whole general public, because we have to change. We cannot no longer bury in our head and thinking this is going to go away, because look, mental illness is like it doesn't go away. It's like any illness.
It doesn't go away until we resolve and we take action.
We have to see it.
But action must be formed.
Illness like any other illness, and persons need to be treated with respect and dignity at all times. And the violation,
we could talk it, but I don't think we would see any real change. Maybe for another 30 years if we start.
Another 30 years?
Well, he says
but by then you've gone.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. We're on the way out. We're on the way out.
So are we wasting? This conversation is not important.
No, it's not.
No, that's why we need to start it now.
No, what I'm saying, but Doc is saying this is not going to happen now.
Well,
what I'm saying, we will see some changes, but for it to really happen, we have to start with the little children, 3 and 4 year old, and groom them and let them. So you're in a classroom with somebody who is, you know, we have names. We try to put it down. If you're tall boy. If you're short, if you're fat, something. But we want to have everybody in the class. So somebody with Down syndrome, autism, and so on. So you need to know that this child is
not special school where they go there
and they go there. Special ed education that has its own stigma.
Oh yes.
If you want to disc an individual, make them feel bad, ask them if they go to school. You make the school. Are you going to school in that
special bus? The bus and the bus that comes.
You see their reaction.
A big name on the bus.
Ask him because one of the issues we wanted to touch on, but we're literally out of time. Is children, young people in stress. And I'm going to ask you. I'm going to start with you and with Sister Ann Graves. Young people.
I'm going to give us
young people.
5 minutes.
Do they suffer with stress?
Of course. There's a lot of things. Social media is a huge stress factor, right? And also following the crowd, you know, the name this and the name that, the same thing. I have the Nike shoes and I have the shoes again, you know, and those are and those are the things. They're under immense pressure, and it's an area that I think we don't have much. We don't have a facility that cares for them particularly. All we got is Mongay. We've only got the Mongay psychiatric unit, which is not really a place for our young people as such. But that's what we have, and that's what we have to make.
Disagree.
No, I don't think he's disagreeing at all. Okay. We need to make it.
What we do though is children will be seen in the general hospital, so they get bedded there as long as they're not.
Very psychotic and passive.
That they can't manage them there, but
so we need more specialists. We need more specialists to deal with our young people, right? And actually help them. And better parenting. You know, we've got better parenting with everybody coming on board. Grandparents, uncle, brother, everybody coming on board. The whole community coming on board and caring for our children.
And while I agree with you wholeheartedly, Sorana is interesting, and we live in a period now where
individualism.
Yes. No longer do we have the overbearing presence of the extended family. Everything now comes down to me, what I feel. There's nothing. It's all about me. It's all about me. There's a lot of relativity, and there's no absolutes now. And all of these bundled together, it creates an ever-revolving door, a quagmire, an unending pressure point, where our young people, middle-aged, human beings as we are, we continue to struggle with dealing with our mental space.
Young people, I wanted to say, Sorana, the young people, don't forget also, the stresses, the traumas of things, early childhood experiences that they've not been able to deal with, they're not healed from. All those things are continuing. They have to deal with. The young boys.
Piggybacking on what you're saying here,
they can't talk about it.
A young lady was telling me, for example, let me use this as an example to finish as you wrap up. She was acting out. She was being sexually abused repeatedly, and they brought her to see psychiatrists in Grenada here at the hospital, and she said she kept saying to them, I am not crazy. Tell these men to keep their hands off me. They would not listen to her. They will not listen to her. They keep telling her that something is wrong with her. She kept fighting. Nothing is wrong with me. I'm not crazy. Tell them to take their hands off of me. And that's a problem a lot of young people have. They are not listened to. And also people with mental problems, they're not listened to either. So we're looking at it both ways. Sometimes you as someone suffering with a mental illness, you try to talk and you're not listening to me. You already make up your mind what is wrong with me. And it's the same thing the young lady was saying. She was repeatedly being sexually abused. and she's a teenager, and the principal, the parents, everybody sending her to psychiatrists, and nobody's listening. Tell these people, get their hands off me.
You know, as we wrap the conversation, it only brings me, take me back to 2 weeks ago here at the GBN. We were here, and a lady walks in. She comes in because you're assuming she's a normal person, only to realize that mentally she was on the other side, whether influenced by some hallucinatory drug or alcohol. But it's interesting here at the GBN, and I want to say this: we called to the police. And would you believe, we thought at least if GBN calls and said, listen, because staff got worried. So eventually had to talk her down, take her outside, walk her down, and she kept repeating saying, tell these people I want to be able to sleep with when the night comes. You know, similar to what you're saying. Could there be some other underlying factor? Do you think that she's necessarily mentally crazy? Mentally off of her wits, or is it this woman is truly troubled by a situation that you and I haven't quite gotten a grasp of yet? I don't know, the jury is still out. Certainly we all agree though.
Maybe she had auditory hallucination here. The guy's talking to her in her sleep and she can't sleep.
Well, what we do agree as we wrap this conversation, I want to say thanks to you, my very, very interactive guest this evening. Thank you, Sorana. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Wendy Graves. It's a pleasure. We've only but touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
what we agree on, though, is that we're living in a mental vacuum. We have a healthcare system that is broken, that needs to be fixed. The question is who and how and when? Who takes the bull by the horn? We want to say to you, whoever you are, whatever your situation is, find a place, a friend, somebody that you can speak to. It is okay to say, I need help. It is okay to say, okay, I need help. It is okay, I'm saying to you, to put your hand up and say, somebody, I'm here and I need you to be a friend. Yes? Why not? The conversation starts now as we wrap it up right here on Beyond the Headlines. Until then, another place and time. I'm Joseph Cadore saying, have yourself a really great one and continue to manage where you are mentally. You are coping tonight, tomorrow. We say positive words, soft words. A soft answer turns away wrath, grievous words stirs up anger. Keep yourself in a good mental space. Good night. God bless.
You know the other thing.